This is a presentation on the exploration of the Americas and in general the oceans beyond the boundaries of Europe. Uh, European nations uh, were looking for an all-water route to East Asia. Why? Because they wanted to get a lower price on things that they could buy in East Asia, meaning India or the islands in the southwestern Pacific. They wanted spices, they wanted gold, they wanted silver, of course. Um, and there were five Western European nations that were especially interested in this: Portugal, Spain, Britain, France, and the Netherlands. And what they have in common is that all five of them border the Atlantic Ocean. Um, Now, they were trying to get a competitive advantage over the Italian and African traders who were trading overland. Now, the problem with trading overland from thousands of miles away is that you go through a number of middlemen, and it's very costly to carry things in that way. Uh, but Portugal found that they could sell spices, for example, for one-fifth the price that Italian traders were charging, and they could still make huge profits. Because when you travel by water, you don't have any middlemen, and the source of energy is simply the wind, and that's free. Now let's talk a bit more about their reasons, their motives for doing this. The most obvious one that we've already referred to is financial. They could make a lot of money doing it. But they also wanted to convert people to Christianity. And after the Reformation, which began in 1517, the exploration was also focused on converting people to your version of Christianity, to become Protestants or to become Catholics, so whatever you happen to believe in, or to join one version of Protestantism as opposed to another. Um, and they were also competing for power with each other. These are countries that have often been rivals of each other, have often gone to war with each other, and they were competing within Europe. And one way to expand their control or their power was to enlarge their empires around the world. Now, the first explorer that we're going to look at in American history is, of course, Christopher Columbus. In 1492, he traveled westward from Spain to the Caribbean. Um, this took about 33 days or so. Contrary to popular belief, this was not an especially difficult voyage. The seas were calm, the winds were cooperative. We don't know where Columbus landed at first. There are all sorts of theories about that, and I don't know that it's ever going to be settled. We also don't know what Columbus looked like because he was never painted while he was living. So this is one common portrait of Columbus. So this is what Columbus looked like. Or did he look like this? Or how about this? Maybe like this. Or here's another view of Columbus. Or here's the Hollywood view of Columbus. Or here's another picture of him. Here he's hard of hearing. Here he's got a turban on. What is the bottom line of all of these? That is, we have no idea what this man looked like. We do know, however, that the significance of his voyage was enormous. One of the important consequences of it was what is called the Columbian Exchange. And you can look at the slide in the PDF version to study this at greater length. There are certain products that went from the American...
Can I have your attention, please? The Trinity Rock.
Okay, there are some goods that went from the Americas to Europe, like turkeys, like corn, like tomatoes, potatoes. There are other goods that came from Europe to the Americas, such as grapes, bananas, honeybees, wheat, and rice. This was an enormous exchange of uh, goods in both directions. Unfortunately, one of the things that especially Europe sent to the United States, to what would be the United States, to North, South, and Central America, was disease. And this was terribly devastating to Native Americans. The two countries that led the exploration of the Atlantic were Portugal and Spain. And very early, shortly after Columbus's first voyage, they divided the entire globe into two parts, as if they had the right to, explore and control the entire world, and nobody else did. The first one was called the line of demarcation. It was drawn by the Pope, and the second one was the Treaty of Tordesillas a year later in 1494. And what Portugal gained from this was control of Brazil. And of course, we know that today the language of Brazil is still Portuguese. Now, by 1700, that's when this map is, the Western Hemisphere had been divided among these five nations that I've already referred to. In green is France. In orange is Britain. In yellow is this huge area known as New Spain in North America and Mexico, in a large part of South America, and in islands of the Caribbean. And then the Netherlands, the Dutch, controlled these areas in South America, and the Portuguese controlled primarily Brazil. And these were um, the colonies created by these European countries within about 2 centuries after the first voyage of Columbus. This will be continued in part 2 of this video.